Hello, Uganda. Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Hotseat on 933 KFM. I welcome you, our listeners across this beautiful land, the Pearl of Africa, and let me say, Happy Mother's Day, Uganda. It's such a beautiful day. It has been a beautiful day with Ugandans and especially the Christians celebrating the Uganda Matters at Namugongo shrines, both for the Catholic Church and the Anglican Church. And my guest this evening is a member of Parliament, but also a Reverend Father representing Laro Peche Division in Gulu City, the Honorable Reverend Father Charles Onan. Thank you so much for joining us, and Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day, Kamara. Dr. Kamara. Patrick Kamara.
Yes.
I'm so happy and delighted to be your guest this evening. Today we are commemorating the great events, the most difficult decision that Kabaka Mwanga had to take at that time, destroying those who are causing political, economic, and social, almost chaos in his palace. We need to know that Kabaka Mwanga was not a pagan. He was really a convert. He was a Muslim convert. He got converted to the Islamic religion, and he was also practicing. But you recall that immediately after welcoming the Islamic religion, the Christian faith creed, the Christian missionaries arrived in his palace, and it welcome some of his subjects, some of his chiefs, some of the servants got converted either to the Islamic religion or to Christianity, and there was confusion. The Islamic, the Muslim wanted the attention of the king and the chiefs and the servants, and also the Christians also wanted the attention of the king and so forth. So there was a lot of confusion. And at the end of the day, he decided, first of all, by eliminating about 70 Muslims, the first martyrs to be killed by Kabaka were the Kabaka Mwanga, were the 70 Muslims. And these are not being talked about. I don't know why the Muslims are so quiet over this.
Well, it's a matter of choice and a matter of their faith. Exactly. But there is a place that is known. Government recognizes that among the people who were killed were Muslims or Christians, Protestants, and the Catholic. I think that is documented. Well, for them to choose not to celebrate, that's entirely their choice. But it is documented.
It is their choice, yes. Mm-hmm. Well. So, the 70 Muslims were destroyed. The 45 Christians, that is Catholics and Anglican. There were 22 Catholics and 23 Anglicans. And you recall in 1960, Pope Pius the 11th consecrated the Namugongo to be a shrine in order for the faithful to celebrate the legacy of faith, the heroic faith which got demonstrated by the martyrs. And later on, Pope Paul VI canonized the Ugandan martyrs, and Namugongo became now official site for pilgrims, for worship, and so forth. So today we see a number of actually millions of people go to Namugongo yearly for this Mother's Day celebration. The Anglican too also decided, okay, we shall also begin what? Annually we shall begin celebrating and observing this matters day. Matters of our church. And the government of then and now the NRM government decided to make this as a public holiday. Let the Anglican and the Muslim who were killed on the 3rd of June, let them all sit together, let them all converge in their shrines and then do worship.
I want to, Reverend Father Nain, to take you back to that act of faith of those young people, the 45 and the 70, who could not turn away from their faith more than 100 years back. When you look at that time of that kind of faith and you look at the faith today, those matters really challenge us, don't they?
You see, those days, religion was not considered, was not being viewed as a social gathering, unlike today. Today, people, it is just a fashion. We go not because of conviction, but it is a social kind of event which takes us. But those days, people took seriously the baptism they receive, the faith, the sacrament they receive, the promise which they made to the what? To their Lord. But today you hear people, I receive Jesus, my Lord and Savior. It is lip service. Today we give lip service, but not everyone do give lip service. There are those who are actually committed, and that's why they walk on foot. People walk from walk from West Nile, from northern Uganda, from eastern Uganda, from DRC, from Rwanda, from almost from all around East Africa. They walk on foot, and this is a conviction. Although there are those who are following others who are what? Who have committed themselves to walk. It is like a bandwagon kind of what.
So is there a possibility, Reverend Father Nan, that we could get back to that kind of faith, return to the Lord, like the people were so committed to Him back in the day?
It is possible, and it is incumbent now of the religious leaders and the kind of teaching, the kind of catechism they give to the world. Look at Kizito, the youngest martyr. Saint Kizito, the youngest martyr. He was about 11 years old, and the conviction. He said, actually, he decided not to listen to he disobeyed his father. He disobeyed his father, and he had to face the what? He said, "For the Lord, I give my life." So it means the kind of catechism which he was catechized with was so deep. And, it used to take like a year for somebody to be baptized. So you have to undergo through these kind of processes, and which is still there in the Catholic Church. But in most of these other denominations and the sects, like the Pentecostal, the moment you just get up and say, I accept Jesus as my Lord and Savior, there is no proper teaching, no proper catechism, no doctrine, no tradition, nothing. So, and that's why you see our faith is just only wavering around.
Let me ask this with a lot of respect. Has the history of the Ugandan matters happening more than 100 years ago, was it really documented with a lot of accuracy? Or over the years, people having added on and maybe removed some stuff? Because look, there are very few people who could read and write. There were not even technology that could record or even capture the moments.
Yes, well, you are aware that even the Bible, even the teaching of Christ, it was transmitted orally. The oral tradition dominated. And even in Africa, even in Uganda, there were not so many, learned people, but the tradition was kept orally. And that's why tradition plays a greater role when it comes to faith. So we cannot destroy the tradition. And there are churches without tradition. They're just there. They just emerge. Somebody gets up and, builds his own heart and he begins saying, I've started my church. There's no tradition. They cannot trace the tradition of that church beyond the one who started. And I don't want to give names.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But you see, whereas you give the comparison of the Middle East and maybe in the Horn of Africa, people started writing thousands of years ago. They have their own, orthography. They could write. They could document stuff. But in Africa, we didn't have that kind of stuff. Maybe only a few people who had brought a religion to be able to write. And I'm not actually challenging that these things never happened. I'm only being inquisitive on how thorough it could have been.
Civilization, we are taught, that started around the Nile Basin, like in Egypt. The people of Egypt already knew how to write. And also West Africa, some of the West African countries already they are kind of literacy kind of what literacy kind of idea. But coming to the East and East Central Christianity, the missionaries were the ones who actually taught our people how to what?
To read and write.
To read and write. But we give credit to them because when these people came, they started by what? Started by opening catechetical schools where they could teach young children how to recite the rosaries, how to pray. Later on, those who came with scabies and so forth and some kind of diseases and wounds, they started treating them, and dispensaries were what? Were created. And this developed into major hospitals like Lacho Hospital, like Rubaga Hospital, like Mengo Hospital, among others in this country. So, West Africa, for example, already by the time, the connection with the Portuguese started coming that side way back in the early 17th and so forth. So they knew how to what? Now, there were universities which were started in West Africa. So those people really, they were advanced, unlike in the East and East Africa and Central Africa. We got to colonize, we got to know how to read and write when the missionaries came, when the Comboni and the church, the European missionaries entered our country, or countries like East African countries. So tradition people used to keep things on orally in music, through dance, music, and through oral kind of
storytelling from generation to generation.
Exactly.
From generation to generation.
That is.
So now, like you said, today we have seen mushrooming of so many churches. In fact, if you go to the informal settlement areas, you walk about 50 meters, even the direction, you'll find a church. But then, even with the growth of numbers in terms of churchgoers, there is a decline of integrity in terms of Ugandans.
Religious entrepreneurs. Religious entrepreneurs, they look at how to mint money, how to get money from the what? From the general population. And actually, they're doing much better than their followers. They tell them, sow seeds. To whom do they sow seeds? To the master. And where do those seeds go? To the accounts of the masters. Their followers, those religious leaders, they're driving pot cars. Actually, even they dictate the number of the kind of cars they want to buy, or the kind of car he wants to buy. I need this model, new model, Mercedes-Benz, Land Cruiser, and so forth. And the people collect money. So they are doing much better than they were. Those followers of those religious entrepreneurs, you find them working on foot every day, but they go and sow seeds of millions of shillings. But the result is that they don't get anything.
But Reverend Father Nan, the issue is matters of faith are very complicated. For you have studied theology and all that kind of stuff. You're better than most of us because you've gotten to study it. But matters of faith, somebody can decide to be very poor. They're donating to the rich, and then how do you question it? Because that's faith. That's their faith.
Even those days, even during the Christ time, people were robbing followers. People were robbing those who come to the mosque, to the synagogues, in the name of the Lord. And that's why Jesus said, not all those who call me Lord, Lord will be able to will enter the kingdom of God. You have turned my Father's house to be a den of what?
Of thieves.
Of thieves. You come here to rob in the name of what? You come to do business in the church. And in most of the churches, the mushrooming churches, actually these people are doing businesses. They're doing business in the name of...
But even if it's not mushrooming church, and I'm saying this again with a lot of respect and humility, even in the established traditional church, back in the day when we were young, if a parish priest was going to visit, like Bwana Mukuru, like they say, that person would be so much revered, so much respected. It's no longer the case in our traditional churches.
The first school of integrity is the family setting. The way you, as Kamara, you are raising your family, the way you are raising your children. So they learn goodness, they learn how to love, how to respect, how to to reciprocate love right from the family. But if the family is scattered, now look at the number of hours, let me say, the time, the number of hours you spend with your children. Most of the time, the children are with strangers. Your children are with strangers, either with the mates at home, with askari, with their teachers or caregivers in schools. And when they come back home, you don't have time. You go back late when they're already watching their cartoons, and immediately they go to bed. So they wake up in the morning. You also wake and come for work. There is the contact hours between you and your children. It is very poor, and that's why integrity, those kind of concepts, the good virtues, which children must learn from home, they have failed to learn. And when they grow up, what do they learn? They're learning from internet. They're learning from friends. They're learning from strangers. And that's why integrity, as the word is heavily compromised, even by the religious leaders, because most of their parents perhaps never stayed with with their children. Their children were at school. So what do you see? Even leaders, not only religious leaders, even political leaders. You see, we are talking about corruption. Corruption in Uganda ranks number one almost in corruption in East Africa. What is happening? It is because of what?
Okay.
family background.
Honorable Reverend Father Charles Onen, hold on to your point, sir, because you're going to take a break, and the hot seat will be right back. Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the hot seat. My name is Patrick Amara. My guest this evening is Honorable Reverend Father Charles Onen, Member of Parliament for Laro Peche Division in Gulu City. On this Matters Day, we're happy to host you. But, you know, I've been wondering, now let me go into politics, because how does a Reverend Father also become an MP in a country like ours, where in most cases we are members of Parliament are accused of all sorts of stuff? How did you leave from serving in the church to serving on the floor of Parliament?
We need to know that the African setting, the African clans and tribes, religion used to dominate almost everything. We are political animals. People say politics is a dirty game. It is a slogan, but the big question is, when will politics be sanitized? When will politics be made clean? And who will do that? You see, we are always giving opportunity and chances to people less cultured to lead us, to be our leaders. And we vote for them. And later on we begin complaining that there is corruption, there's ABCD. I want to tell you that when you look at the composition of members of Parliament, majority are Christians. The speaker, the Right Honourable Speaker, nearly goes after every quarter to yearly. She goes to Vatican. To pay visit to Pope. The Right Honourable Deputy Speaker, he is a staunch Catholic. The Prime Minister, she's a Catholic. The Vice President, a Catholic. Even the President Museveni, you recall the other day, was asking for apology in a certain crusade at Kololo and also in Gulu. He asked for apology, which people are criticizing. That he should have not asked for forgiveness. It should be particular to the kind of issues which he has committed, so that people can forgive him. You see, forgiveness is human. It is godly. He asked for forgiveness from the people and also from God. When you look at the body posture of the president and also of the first lady, they really composed themselves for that kind of repentance. To me, they did not only repent to the people of Uganda or Baganda, they were repenting to God.
Yeah, I think it's their personal.
So it is something we cannot criticize, because forgiveness, asking forgiveness and for repentance, it is biblical. It is there in the Bible. So it does not depend on the mood of the listener.
And if anything, they're asking from God.
The pastor, yes, they are doing it to God. But they want to reconcile with God and man.
But back to you, Honorable Reverend Father.
Yes.
Politics. As we know priests with your priestly robes, and we put you in another way. We look at you from a certain perspective. We know your ways are not like ours. To allow yourself to come into the gutter politics where you can actually be made to roll in the mud by the people, it must have been a tough decision to take that.
Well, I punched every ticket, which nearly not every priest can do that. But I'm not the first priest to be in Parliament with Father Lukodo, Reverend Father Lukodo, with Reverend Father Jacinto. I'm the third priest, and you never know. Even in the next Parliament, the 12th Parliament, there will be more than 2 priests or 3 priests. But when you go to the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, when you go to Germany, to USA, their priests were serving. The Chief Justice of Ghana was an Archbishop. The first president of Haiti was a cardinal, like Cardinal Wamala was. Cardinal Wamala he said, "No, I cannot say I'm comfortable in my zone, in my office, in my diocese, when people there are aggressing, when people are there are being misled. There's a lot of political confusion, which politicians tend to cause. There's a lot of ring fencing. Like today, there's ring fencing. If you are not connected to the first family, you're not connected to some generals, you're not connected to some ministers, you cannot win election. Even if you are genuinely coming to represent.
Honorable Nain, I'm asking that the people you serve in Gulu or even where you come from, many have fallen short of the glory. Many we have no values. Many we have veered off. And I'm thinking, when you move away and if the ship is scattered, has no value, has no integrity, is under threat, and then you go and pursue something else, it's your choice, yes. Isn't that like really moving away from the core?
You know, when a teacher leaves leaves teaching and sits among the students, among his pupils, he wants to demonstrate, he wants to lead by example. You know, teachers always teach with examples. So I'm coming, because even the canon law allows, canon 287 paragraph 2 allows for a priest to engage in politics, not party politics, to be engaged in politics, if it is necessary for the common good of the people. The common good of what are the common goods of the what? Of the people at the net? Social services. People are lying a lot. Like in northern Uganda, people everything was, the President Museveni has done this. Now, what do we need to do? What do we do? What do we do now? There's poverty. What do we need to do? This is the question, and they don't want to answer those questions. And when you ask them, now, what do we do now? Are you not aware? We are now being put in camps for 20 years. So now the camp issue is gone. What do we need to do? Now comes the issue of the Balaalo thing. The Balaalo is just the manipulation of the people in poverty. The manipulation of the people in poverty. And who are those?
What do you mean the manipulation of people in poverty?
The manipulation of the people in poverty, because now they come with the money and they say, we want to rent your land. We want to engage into this, pastoralist kind of nomadic kind of activities. Give us this land at this value. We want to rent it for 5 years. And then they enter into an agreement which this person does not concentrate on the what? On the agreement itself. But it is what?
So wait a minute. So Reverend Charles,
they later on change the agreement into something else.
Are you saying in those cases we do not have a legitimate, buyer and a legitimate seller in the land? Because there could be a real owner of the land and a real buyer of the land, and there are some legitimate people who have settled there. And
the land of northern Uganda, generally in the Acoli sub-region, it is a communal land. So which means if somebody gets some and say, I'm the seller, a sole seller, he's not a legitimate owner of the land. He's not the legitimate owner of the land.
There are some real Acoli who have actually bought land, big chunks of land. I don't know whether about your land, but there are people who own land, have bought and have land titles in northern Uganda.
Are you aware about that? It is on agreement of the what?
But there are people, whether local leaders, or not, who also have land and land titles. Yes,
we are not politicians. Yes, the local chiefs, they could sit and say, this piece of land we intend to give is like when people gave land to Amoro sugar factory. Mm-hmm. It is the chief of Matyr who sat these subjects and said, we need this kind of development in our areas. Not only the chief of the Road of Matyr, even of Powell, they came together, those chiefdoms, they came together, they talked to their subjects, said, these are the kind of development we need in our area. So you people allow Matyr sugar to operate on this. We need some compensation to be given. And it was a genuine kind of engagement.
I'm a little bit aware about the land tenure system in northern Uganda. Land belongs to the dead, the present, and the unborn. It's communal. But there are also cases, Honorable Onen, where people own land with land titles. And some of them are Acoli. And if they do, and they have titles, they can actually sell.
Now,
if there is a willing seller and a willing buyer.
Now, it is only done not to intruders. You cannot do it to an intruder, but you can do it or give it to your own, or you can even give it freely, and you can also title it. You can also title, which is not there. The law does not allow you to sell this land.
Which law?
The customary law. The customary law. Not everything is written on books. Not everything is written,
I do not deny the fact that there could be people who have come to northern Uganda and grab land. I cannot deny the fact that there could be people who have been hoodwinked and their land is taken.
True.
But also among them, there could be legitimate owners.
It is something which is now taking place after the war, when people went to the camp, when people were put to the camps, and when they were coming out, certain individuals started now buying land, including the Acoli people. They started buying land. Remember, the camp system destroyed almost all fibers of all the social fibers of the people of Acoli. The economic, political, social, everything. Even everything got destroyed, including schools got destroyed. Everything got destroyed. The culture got destroyed. That which used to keep people together completely got destroyed. And now people are taking advantage, especially those who wield power, those who have money, they're taking advantage of that.
As for the people of Balaalo Peche division, what is their headache and how are you solving it as their leader?
Well, the challenges are many. We have the problem, like in my area, especially the next areas, we don't have electricity. And government is talking about socio-economic transformation. How can you transform a society without electricity? I raised that on the floor of Parliament, and the Minister of Energy called me and said, Father, I need you in my office. When I went, he called his board team, and we started saying, tell me the areas that need now electricity to be connected. Because even in my home, I use phone torch to light my house at night. It is something, if I happen to go with you tonight, that is what. But now, at the moment, the government is taking poll. As I said, like yesterday, they delivered about 140 pylon poles, electrical poles, and very soon the area is going to be connected. And I believe there is going to be meaningful economic transformation in the area, and people will no longer be talking about poverty, because our youth who are not doing anything they can now get engaged into kind of economic activities like welding, fabrication, and so forth.
Okay.
And also, and even investors can be now. We can now get interested. Investors can get interested to come to Balaalo.
So are you going back to the people of Peche to ask them to hire you again?
Well, I will not before talking to my bishop. You recall when I joined politics, I wrote a letter requested to be on leave of absence for a period of 5 years, which will be elapsing on the 1st of October. So on the 1st of October, I will have to go to my bishop. Unfortunately, I have a new archbishop. The other one has now retired. I have a new pope. So everything is new. So I have to go slow. But definitely, the people are saying we have seen a better alternative of representation in you, and we need you back. This is what they're saying. And if it is the case,
Honorable Reverend Father Charles Onen, hold on to your point, sir, because you're going to take a break, and the hot seat will be right back.
8 p.m.
Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the hot seat. My name is Patrick Kamara, and my guest in the studio is Honorable Reverend Father Charles Onen, Member of Parliament for Balaalo Peche Division in Gulu City, and we are honored to have you on Mother's Day. But let me look at something very specifically and more deeply that is concerning majority of you people in northern Uganda today, and that's the issue of the pastoralists, whom now we call the Balaalo, because the government had given them an ultimatum of 14 days, and I think we're rebelling with a few days for the ultimatum to come to an end. But really, are the Balaalo grazing their cattle in northern Uganda such a big pain to the people in the north?
Well, the post-conflict sub-region of northern Uganda, the Acoli sub-region in particular, it is heavily being antagonized by massive land wrangles, which majorly being compounded or catalyzed by the Balaalo pastoralist. You recall between 1996 to 2007, the people of Acoli sub-region were forcefully removed from their land and put into an IDP. Land in Acoli sub-region, it is not just a slice of earth that can be sold, that can be farmed, that can be. Land equates to history, to heritage. Land equates to identity, to belonging, to rights and relationship. So when people were in the camp, that generation, remember, the proper knowledge of how land was kept, how land was used, how land was divided, that knowledge about the land got destroyed by people who were, forcefully put in the camps for 20 years. So that generation, almost 90% of people who were born, or people who went, 70% of those who went to the camps, the elders perished, they died in the camp due to starvation, due to the hard life in the camp. So remember, we were surviving, the people in Northern were surviving on the mercy of the NGOs, the Save the Children, the Invisible Children, and so forth. Those NGOs, there were over 360 NGOs operating in Northern Uganda. The education system, everything got ravaged, got destroyed, including the knowledge pertaining to the land. And now the chaotic return of the people who were in the IDPs, those who are going back, that rush, because the proper knowledge, how land was used, how land was cared, how land got ravaged, got destroyed. And, coupled with now the poverty, people wanted to catch up with life. So it was a leeway for land grabbers. It was a proper opportunity for the land grabbers to take advantage of this. And now this young generation, these children going back, they were going back without their elders who could show them this is where our land is started from and where it has stopped. This is how
wait a minute. You're talking an opportunity for land grabbers. Does that mean really that a pastoralist or a Muraro will travel from Nakasongola, from Bunyoro, from Rukunjiji, and come somewhere in nowhere and establish themselves and they start grazing land without any coordination with the local people? Is that what you're saying?
People woke up in the morning. People woke up in the morning and found, thousands of cattle roaming around, grazing around. It happened in Lao sub-region. It happened in Bunyoro. It happened in Teso and so forth. The people in Teso, those in Teso, those generals, like the Lueo and so forth, they came together and said, no. And they drove them out. They went to Bunyoro. The same thing, the generals from there. But let me tell you, this is a well-calculated move. The Balaalo are not just innocent pastoralists. These people are grazing their animals with AK-47. And you ask, who are the monopoly of the AK-47? This is the UPDF. The UPDF. I'm waiting to see and to hear when a Mulalo will be court-martialed. The Karamojong pastoralists, they don't graze animals with the what? They used to graze with some local rifles, and they were disarmed. But the Balaalo are moving at AK-47, meaning these people are keeping the animals or cattle.
So let me ask if Honorable Nen, somebody occupies your land illegally in northern Uganda, you have the right to go to court, you have the right to go to police, to use the LOC systems and kick them out.
No,
how can somebody occupy your land? Have you gone to court and the court has failed you? Have you gone to police and police has kept quiet? Are you really telling Ugandans that there are no genuine land occupants, those who have bought from the willing sellers and they have their money and they have bought with their money and they have settled there legally? Don't you have those people?
Well, I want to take you back. That Acoli sub-region, it is governed by about 54 clans and sub-clans. The land tenure system of Uganda give rights to the people of Acoli sub-region to all their land, to keep their land, to have rights over their land communally. And I was telling you that the elders who knew the land usage, the elders who knew how land was divided, the elders who knew knew the rights and ownership, how the land was owned, how the land was used, they perished in the camps. And now there are young children, the young generation who are going back. They are selling those land illegally without the consent of the elders. Remember, young generation, they have their kind of ambition. They wanted to catch up with life. Some of them have children, and the children are at home. They want to take their children to school. So they see the only valuable item at the moment, it is the land, which they don't have that right to sell.
I have spoken to some of the Balaalo who are in northern Uganda, and none of them has bought land without the consent of the family, without the presence of the LC systems.
Let me tell you,
without
the LCs, there are those who have sold land, a piece of land, more than 2 times. And you find the signature and the stamp of the LCs there. When you ask the LC, were you not aware that this land was bought? That yes, I was aware. But I thought the one who sold the land is the one who, again, who bought the land is the one who reselling the land. So the system, the LC system, are also being compromised. Remember, these LCs, there are also young boys, young men who were born in the camp, raised in the camp, and now they're going back.
But let me put it to you, Reverend Father Onen. There are people like you who are actually in leadership and politics who own land in northern Uganda. Titled land. You have land titles in northern Uganda. Are you aware about that?
No.
Are you aware about
this? This is what, yes, I'm aware.
Yes, if you have a land title in northern Uganda, can't you sell if you want it? Because that's your property.
Yes, well,
you're legal occupant.
There are those who have titled their father's what? Their father's land.
And they have sold.
Now,
and some of them have sold.
Their father's land. And they have the rights over the what?
Yes.
Their father's land. But this communal grazing piece of land, which were used by the what? by the community, by the society, by the community those days. It is the one being sold. And it is the one that Balaalo are also using. And now there are those who actually have their private land, like I call it family land. You find these Balaalos, they come with their animals, they even graze on those pieces of land, destroying their whatever, their crops and so forth. Now, out of desperation, these people are being forced to give out their land. They're being forced. Because Balaalo are grazing everywhere. Where do you take this court system? Because the same court, it is being run by the same system. The system which is giving Balaalo guns to graze their animals. The very system which is also denying those who go to court demanding. Let me tell you, so many people went to court. So many people were also arrested by the Balaalo and taken to court. And they have won court cases. So many. They won court cases, and President Museveni came with an executive order number 3 on the 9th of November 2023. He came with an executive order. But what happened? His brother from the other side said Balaalo should not go. A verification team must be created. Then the president gave another executive order. You must leave. The Balaalo, the brother, the Salim Saleh said no, don't go. And they are also generals. Let me tell you, when the verification team went to verify who are these Balaalos, how did they acquire the land, they found that over 28 ministers have acquired certain piece of land, and they claim that they have acquired that piece of land legally. Over 28 ministers. And there are over 30 members of parliament. Over 30 members of parliament. They always hold their meeting in northern Uganda. Over 30 members of parliament. There are about 18 generals. Not these ordinary generals. They have chunks of land. And these are
so you basically do not want ministers. Other Ugandans to settle, even if they are to settle legally in northern Uganda.
No. It is not that we don't want people to settle in northern Uganda, but the way they are acquiring the land, it is purely land grabbing, it is purely manipulation of the young generation to acquire those pieces of land. This is what we are saying. And secondly, the way they are behaving, the way they are grazing their animals, even on innocent people, even those who have not consented that their land be used by them, they come and graze in order to you to be discouraged and you walk away from your piece of land. This is what we are saying. It is wrong. It is pure manipulation.
Unfortunately, we'll come to the end of tonight's edition. We're almost coming to the end of tonight's edition because I want to bring in other people. We're going to take a break, but when we come back, I'll pick my call and be able to get in touch with Mr. Simon Kaheru from the East African Business Council and also Dr. Aisha Kasolo from the Private Sector Foundation, Uganda. In the meantime, what's going to be your parting shot, your concluding remark?
Well, rights. It is not something that you can have to demand for somebody. You demand from somebody. The people of northern Uganda, they were made so by God to be in that piece of land. And if the Balaalo are to acquire this piece of land, they must acquire it through a legal means. Now, the executive order must be respected. The president, the fountain of honor, if he's not just fooling the people of northern Uganda, if he's not just appeasing the people of northern Uganda, gave an executive order, but he cannot actually enforce that. His brother from the other side, like SF, is the one who is actually financing the Balaalo to keep grabbing people's land and stay with guns, with AK-47. This must stop.
All right. Honorable Father Charles Onen, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
We're going to take a break.
Thank you.
AFM. Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat, and we are joined on this Matters Day by Mr. Simon Kaheru from the East African Business Council Uganda chapter. Simon, thank you so much for joining us, and happy Matters Day.
Happy Matters Day indeed, Patrick, and all listeners out there.
You know, Simon, it's very interesting. You and I'm sure, we've been talking about Matters Day for quite some time now, almost 4 years. And what I have realized is that the day, in terms of numbers, it's getting bigger and bigger. We are yet to get the police report, but we are told so far we are likely to have a record number. What do you make about this growing enthusiasm about Matters Day in Uganda?
I believe that every year we get better and better at explaining to people the importance of this occasion, the ceremony, the matters themselves, but also the importance of such symbols, national symbols, to our economy, to our people, to all Ugandans. It's not just something for In the past, it was for, the Catholics. Then people realized, no, we even have Anglican matters. Okay, it's for the Christian. No, it's for all Ugandans. But then, Patrick, even more importantly now, from the conversations we've been having over the last 4 days, for the entire world. Because more and more people outside of Uganda have turned their eyes to this country. And especially because of last year's commemoration of 60 years old, the event in Rome at the Basilica.
You know, another interesting thing about now, for example, the Matyr Shrine is that I think about 2 popes have been to that place. That alone gives it some kind of significance, doesn't it?
That gives it additional significance. But of course, the matters themselves are the number one reason. The popes are important for us, you and I, who are involved in tourism and who want this economy to grow. Because when you have, do we say papal interest or papal interest? The entire Roman Catholic world must turn their eyes and look at Uganda. And for this one day, this 1 week when they are looking at Uganda, we need to give them the right things to look at, appreciate, and enjoy, even if they've not physically come here. And this is where we have a little bit of a problem. Okay, I say a big problem. I don't want to be pessimistic, but we can do much, much better. I've been trolling the websites just to see what we're saying, what we pushed out there about Uganda today, and we've not done well.
So in other words, in your own view, what would we be doing? You mean telling our story? What story can we tell that we haven't told, Simon?
The story is theming Uganda. The story, Patrick, is theming Uganda along the lines of what all these Roman Catholics out in the world, the billions of Roman Catholics who are looking at this country, for them to appreciate that, yes, I would want to go and visit that country next year, or maybe even next month. I would want to go and see that shrine. I would want to go and touch that holy water. But along the way, what else will I do? I'm not going to buy a ticket and go only to Namugongo. What else can I do on my way there? Must I wait for June 3rd, 2026? Can I come next month? Are there offers that are available? Who are the good Ugandans today, besides you and the people on this panel, who are talking about matters there and talking about it in a nice way? When you go to social media and you click on Uganda accounts, what are they saying today? Yes, it's a public holiday and they're at home chilling and enjoying and relaxing. But what are they saying?
Unfortunately, Simon, today also, what is likely to be in the news, that has been in the news for the last couple of hours, is the explosion at one of the shrines, Catholic shrines. Well, some people are treating it as a terrorism event. 2 people died on a motorcycle, apparently carrying explosives. And that is likely to eclipse the celebrations, isn't it?
But that was designed to mar Uganda's image. That was designed to take us down, to do the exact opposite of what Matters Day itself and its commemoration is supposed to achieve, besides us honoring those matters. And I think we should pay tribute to our security forces for nipping it in the bud, and quite effectively too. It's unfortunate that it still becomes a story of international interest, but we need to drown it out. Actually, by loading the work of these security personnel that have, they've been trailing these people from what we've had for quite a long period of time. It shows you that some things actually work. It would have been better if the explosion hadn't happened, but it makes you think also how many explosions have not happened. For this to be the one incident over all these years, it tells you how safe Uganda is. That's another positioning point that we need to emphasize. A colleague at work asked me today, I work with people in different countries in Africa. A colleague asked me today, so why is Uganda being targeted? Why would terrorists attack Uganda? And I explained to them the role that Uganda plays geopolitically and within this region. The security, our deployment of security forces in different countries who, resolve conflict, to ensure there's peace, and to ensure there's economic growth. And those of us who keep talking about East African community integration and the growth of this community, we find that to be very important, and we want more of that security across the region so that we can live peaceful lives, but do business and grow this economy.
Simon Kaheru from the East African Business Council, I want to thank you so much for the time you have given us, for your submission. I also know you have also to celebrate the reminder of your Mother's Day. Please do. And everyone else, I want to thank each one of you who has been listening to us on this Mother's Day. I want to thank you for the privilege of your company across this country. And, like we have heard from different people, and of course, Simon and the rest, even yesterday when we talked about the same subject, this Mother's Day is gaining popularity year after year. Numbers are increasing by the day or by the year, which is a good thing. And Uganda and the government of Uganda should be trying all they could to be able to cash in on such a huge day, because it has such huge relevance and huge significance, not only in the Christian community in Uganda, but the Christian community in East Africa and beyond. Remember, this same place has brought in 2 popes to come and visit this place. So until next Mother's Day, we wish you the best. And this brings us to the end of tonight's edition. Join us again, same time tomorrow, same station. Good night and God bless you.